All right, let's get started. Happy World Tourism Day, everyone. Actually, the World Tourism Day is on the 27th, Saturday, but it's already Saturday in some parts of the world. We are celebrating here on Friday evening. Welcome to the Tourism Dialogue Series. This series is hosted by Arizona State University's Center for Sustainable Tourism. The purpose of the series is to foster deeper level discussion, exchange ideas, and explore interdisciplinary perspective on topics related to tourism and development. We are happy to welcome over 100 registrants from all over the world today. I know it might be too early or too late for some of you, but I do really appreciate you being here. For introduction, I'm Gyan Neopane. I'm a professor and interim director of Center for Sustainable Tourism here at ASU, and it's my privilege to moderate today's webinar. The theme of today's webinar is Reimagining Tourism: Pathways to Sustainable Transformation. This topic aligns with this year's United Nations World Tourism Day theme, Tourism and Sustainable Transformation. Tourism is a major service industry, but its impacts on environment, culture, and communities can't be ignored. There has been conversation on tourism's role as a catalyst for positive change using inclusive approaches that integrate sustainability, resilience, and equity for the benefit of both people and the planet. Today, we'll discuss how tourism can be reimagined toward a more just, sustainable, and resilient future. Now, I would like to briefly introduce our distinguished speakers. Our first speaker is Dr. David Simmons. Dr. Simmons is a professor emeritus at Lincoln University, New Zealand. He is an internationally recognized tourism expert. He founded tourism studies at Lincoln University and established the Center of Excellence for Sustainable Tourism. He has contributed to tourism planning and education in numerous countries, including New Zealand, Sarawak, Cambodia, Niue, Mauritius, and Nepal. And he advised international organizations such as World Wildlife Fund, WWF, and the United Nations World Tourism Organization, and many others. Currently, he serves as the Deputy Chair of the Himalayan Trust and the Chair of EarthCheck Research Institute. He is joining us from Christchurch, New Zealand. Our second panel member is Dr. Kelly Beaker. Dr. Beaker is my colleague here at ASU. She is a globally recognized academic leader, scholar, and advocate for sustainability with over 25 years of experience. Dr. Beaker currently serves as Associate Dean of the Hainan Arizona State University International Tourism College, and she also serves as the director of the School of Community Research and Development at ASU. Dr. Beaker's expertise includes sustainable destination assessment, visitor use management, and tourism's role in ecosystem and cultural resilience. She has led projects in partnership with the Global Sustainable Tourism Councils, GSTC. These projects contribute to sustainability evaluations for various destinations. Her international capacity building efforts have supported protected area management and tourism development around the world, including China, Latin America, and the Pacific Islands. She has served on advisory roles to various organizations, including U.S. State Department, the U.S. Travel and Tourism Advisory Board, and the IUCN. She currently serves as the Vice Chair of GSTC, also known as Global Sustainable Tourism Council. Dr. Simmons and Dr. Beaker will make about 15 minutes presentation each, and then at the end we'll have some questions and answers and discussion session. So please use question and answer function, not chat function, to post your questions. Let's begin with Dr. Simmons with his presentation. Dr. Simmons, the floor is yours.
Namaste, Gyan. Greetings all. Kia ora from New Zealand, where it is World Tourism Day. It's about 10 o'clock in the morning here in New Zealand, and we've just started our spring season. So I am screen sharing. I hope you can all see that now. And so my brief introductory comments, I'd just like to introduce the idea of regenerative tourism as a way of reimagining tourism and as a further development of the pathway to sustainable tourism. So I've just got 5 or 6 slides. I would certainly want to leave time open at the end for the panel to ask what questions, or our participants to ask what questions they may wish to ask. Now, I'm just, yes. So let's look, first of all, by way of introduction, at the concept of regenerative economics. And so the concept of regenerative tourism isn't just new to the tourism sector. People talk about it in agriculture, about regenerative agriculture actually improving the soil, improving water management, and improving water runoff and the like. It's applicable to forestry, to transportation, and to fashion. So the tourism sector isn't alone in just thinking about regeneration. And in our case, in tourism, I think in many senses it's come about as a frustration with sustainability as a buzzword. So I was a student in 1987 when the Brundtland report, Our Sustainable Future, came out. And there's been many years, most of my professional career has been trying to understand sustainability in tourism. What do we measure? How do we track progress? What are the key indicators? And there's a sense that maybe at one level, we've never really achieved sustainability, especially when questions in faraway places like New Zealand and Australia, questions of aviation are brought into consideration, brought into the frame. And so therefore, we do have a concern about how do we refresh this? How do we put out a new paradigm? And then, as I said just previously, there's been a failure to establish pathways to sustainability. And I don't know, many of you or some of you have maybe heard the phrase planetary boundaries. It's certainly worth looking up. But all those industries above, agriculture, forestry, transport, fashion, everything we do puts some draw on the Earth's resources. And in some places, tourism is quite light, for example, in use of water or the pollution of water, but other ways, in terms of its carbon emissions per value added to economies, it can be quite heavy. So the planetary boundaries maps out 9 different dimensions in which planet Earth serves its human population. And importantly, regenerative tourism is linked to Indigenous knowledge and science. And one of the key things that Kelly and I both talk about is how important community participation is in securing a satisfactory, harmonious, and I hope sustainable tourism sector. So as we go through this brief introduction, I want you to hang on to the idea that regenerative tourism might be a new philosophy for travel and tourism. And I'll circle back to that a bit at the end. So what are we really talking about? We're talking about regenerative tourism as a process where the tourism sector, all of us, all stakeholders, collectively exert care and guardianship. Guardianship's a wonderful word that we use in New Zealand from our Indigenous Maori. The phrase is kaitiakitanga, that we are guardians of the earth, of Papatūānuku, Mother Earth, for future generations. So we exert care and guardianship through both policy and practice in decision-making and practices for the improvement and enhancement of the natural, human, man-made built environments when moving to visit, so that's the travel, to live in or operate in a destination. So in so doing, we would allow the above elements to exceed their current survivability conditions. So really, we're getting some sense that regeneration may be a step beyond sustainable tourism. And the second definition there from my friend Asaf Hussain, regenerative tourism focuses on ongoing rejuvenation and innovation in tourism systems, focusing on actually enriching, making better social ecological systems. It steps beyond impact reduction, where sustainability really sits, but thriving amid social and environmental capitals, economic stability, and doing all this through the lens of the visitor by creating authentic experiences. So in terms of a diagram, I do like this diagram as I guess this is where the bit of the philosophy comes in, where we might talk here about the world as a machine and the world as a living system. And sustainability, under the Brundtland definition, was talking about harvesting from the flow of nature's resources today to keep enough flow for future generations. So I like the term sustainable harvest. Whereas regeneration actually sees humans as part of the living system, where there are net positive gains, integrated development, living systems thinking. So we go from sustainable to restorative to systems that are thriving. So in an important sense, this might mean that a business we visit, and within the destination that business is located, that as a result of our visit, the society and culture are enriched or able to continue their evolution, that the environment is left in a better condition because we have been involved in activities, and the businesses on our behalf have been involved in activities that positively give back. So this is net positive as opposed to sustainability. So this is quite important to think that this is an interesting transformation. It raises us, it sort of questions us to lift our heads above the line of sustainability and think, what else? How can tourism be a good global and community actor? So this really reframes regeneration as a step beyond sustainability. So just a slide here to tease out a little bit how sustainable and regenerative, how those two paradigms align. So they both have a long-term vision. So the first sustainable focuses on sustainable harvest, drawing what we can from today's stream of resources, whereas regenerative is a bit more net positive, about giving back, in the first instance, restoring, but leaving systems in a better place than they were as a result of our activities in the sector or as our behavior as a visitors. They both have similar scope and ambition, reducing harm to actively seeking to restore and enhance natural and environmental outcomes. Now, I struggle with the concept of net positive simply because the carbon loading on tourism and mobilities is so high. But certainly, I think the pathways that lead us to social enhancement, cultural enhancement, better financial yield, and more active environmental outcomes at the site level are easier to achieve and are noble sort of challenges. The fourth point, outcome orientation, moving beyond balance to actively create positive impacts. And finally, sort of closing the circle on where I started, the question of engagement and participation. That community, the people who live, reside, and have evolved in a place should be seen as significant participants in the collaboration, the building, the participation of the sector, and should be seeking long-term developmental outcomes from engagement and participation. So just some conclusions and implications. I hope you've enjoyed little pictures of New Zealand that have been dotted around my brief presentation. But what we've seen, certainly during the period of COVID, when many countries, New Zealand and Australia in particular, really closed their international borders, which we could do as island states, there was a lot of think tanks, both at the government level, the industry level, supported by academics, students, and scholars. And this is where this idea of regenerative tourism came from. So it has rapidly taken a place on the global stage as a focal point for planning and management. And quite a lot of literature appearing about that at the moment. We can clearly see that it is a step beyond sustainable tourism. It's about doing more and doing better. It's challenged, like all these things. There's a lack of concise definitions, understandings of implementation pathways, and acceptable or practicality to visitors. So one of the things I do with the EarthCheck Research Institute, as we have with sustainability, how would we measure it? How do we know when we might have achieved regeneration? What would be really good indicators of that? And one of the points we've come to, just as a footnote to that comment, is that because it is so location, so site-specific to cultures, or whether you have a natural environment, such as on this slide, or whether you're in an urban environment, the indicators really need to be quite variable. And then, of course, is it a marketable concept? So it's all well and good to think of visitors actively engaged in participating, maybe actively engaged in environmental programs, or businesses stepping beyond their boundaries. But in some ways, this may be just a niche experience, and it may be quite difficult to cascade this idea right across the broad range of tourism products, especially to highly visited sites. But it will require transformation, and it will require transformational thinking across all stakeholders in tourism systems, in businesses, visitors, communities, destination managers, and supply chains. And I sense that many people online today are young people looking for their career. So I'd like to share this idea to say that I'm hopeful that we can transform tourism into a better development opportunity, a better global player. And hopefully you can look around this topic and be inspired by that, because there is an opportunity for tourism to be an agent of positive transformation. So I'll leave my thoughts there and look forward to Kelly's presentation and some Q&A later on. Thank you, Gian.
Thank you, Dr. Siemens. Thank you for introducing the idea of regenerative tourism and how tourism can be an agent of positive transformation. I know many of you have questions for Dr. Siemens, but let's save these questions once Dr. Bricker does her presentation. So now let's go to Dr. Bricker's presentation, and then we'll do discussion after that. Dr. Bricker, you are muted.
I am ready. Okay. Thank you. It's wonderful to be here, and happy World Tourism Day to everyone from your locations. I'm really excited to share my thoughts on the incredible possibilities to encourage us all to consider our role in conserving the very places we feel are awesome, but not only for tourists, but more importantly, utilizing tourism as a force for good in our communities and for our planet. During the next segment of my presentation, I hope to fulfill the promise of sharing important destinations stewardship ideas and the importance of natural and cultural assets for sustainable economic development. And I also want to share the GSTC framework to help us work towards destination stewardship, as well as stories including partnerships in tourism through public and private entities. And along the way, as we think about all of this, I really hope to inspire and perhaps ignite new ideas for maximizing the benefits of tourism while enhancing our natural and cultural heritage and bringing tangible benefits to our communities. At the core of this talk, I'm going to focus on the importance of a healthy planet, because driving all that we do is having a healthy environment and building healthy partnerships that bring unity in our diversity, as well as the important role that nature plays in tourism's capacity to foster good for our communities and our planet. My comments are informed by my experiences as an interpreter, outdoor educator, adventure travel guide, ecotourism business owner, outdoor planner for public lands, volunteer, board member of many nonprofit organizations, educator, and of course, researcher. It is my hope that this presentation will allow you to reflect on key aspects of your own lives and professional undertakings, and the work that you are engaging in or will engage in, and where this might take you in the future. So sit back and relax and try to imagine your journey and the evolution you have experienced in sustainable tourism and related professions. Now, I'm making the assumption that everyone on this Zoom cares a great deal about and has dedicated their professional life and development towards enhancing the health and well-being of our communities. With health and well-being defined as a state of being comfortable, healthy, or happy for all people, all communities, and inhabitants we share this amazing planet with. So, John Muir, who's a philosopher and conservationist from the US, once said that everybody needs beauty as well as bread, places to play in and pray in, where nature may heal and cheer and give strength to the body and soul alike. His sentiment from over 200 years ago has actually been supported through research today. So, in a time of mounting environmental challenges and shifting economic dynamics, we are compelled to ask, how do we grow our regions in a way that strengthens communities, protects biodiversity, and ensures long-term prosperity? So I think that the answer lies somewhere in stewardship. The Global Sustainable Tourism Council's destination standard do provide a framework that helps us align tourism growth with sustainability values. Today, we'll walk through this a little bit and share some stories from communities around the world that have implemented tourism not just as a form of travel, but as a form of transformation, as David mentioned earlier. We often have to remind ourselves that connecting with special places that make up our cultural and natural heritage is not simply a niche segment of our tourism markets. These are mechanisms for resilience and regeneration. For example, 7 to 25% of global tourism is nature-based, and its appeal continues to rise as travelers seek authenticity and meaningful connection with nature and cultural assets. But beyond demand, the true strength of our natural and cultural assets lies in their ability to serve as an economic engine, especially for underserved communities in rural areas. Natural and cultural heritage can generate local employment, stimulate investment in small enterprises, and support critical ecosystems. And when managed properly, these assets contribute to maintaining clean water, preserving forest cover, protecting biodiversity, and reducing urban migration. Protecting natural and cultural heritage is foundational to sustaining life on Earth. Natural ecosystems ranging from forests and oceans to wetlands and mountains are vital repositories of biodiversity, offering essential ecological functions like climate regulation, clean air and water, and fertile soils. These environments buffer communities against climate disasters and support global food, health, and water systems. And beyond ecological value, they nourish human well-being through recreation, cultural practices, and spiritual significance. Economically, natural heritage supports ecotourism, green jobs, and resilient livelihoods, especially in underserved economic regions. Most critically, safeguarding nature is a moral responsibility, ensuring that future generations inherit a healthy, habitable planet. And likewise, protecting cultural heritage is integral to preserving the identity, dignity, and resilience of communities. Cultural assets, both tangible and intangible, anchor shared memory, sustain traditions, and empower local voices. And their protection fosters intercultural understanding, supports inclusive and sustainable tourism, and sustains local economies through community-driven enterprises. Heritage protection upholds human rights and ancestral connections to our land. In a rapidly changing world, strong cultural roots offer social cohesion and resilience. And within the context of sustainable tourism, protecting cultural heritage is not just about preservation. It's about honoring diverse worldviews, and fostering ethical, place-based stewardship. Yet we must also acknowledge the risk. Unmanaged tourism can degrade the very resources and communities it depends upon. Therefore, planning oversight and shared responsibility are really essential to make tourism a force for sustainable development. So, to guide destinations in this balancing act, the Global Sustainable Tourism Council, or GSTC, offers its destination standards, which serve as a comprehensive benchmark for baseline sustainability. The standards are built on 4 pillars, which include sustainable management, socioeconomic benefits, cultural benefits, and the environment. The GST standards begin with strong governance. Destinations must have a coordinating body that includes public, private, and civil society. This body sets out policies, manages risk, and monitors progress through a transparent and inclusive process. And we all know that tourism should generate widespread social and economic benefits. This includes supporting local entrepreneurs, ensuring decent work conditions, and promoting fair trade supply chains. GSTC encourages destinations to measure the contributions economically and ensure equity across demographics. Protecting both tangible and intangible cultural assets are essential. This framework encourages collaboration with local custodians of culture and promotes respectful interpretation that educates and empowers visitors and residents alike. And from biodiversity protection to climate adaptation, the environmental pillar emphasizes responsible land use, low impact development, pollution control, and resilience planning. It also requires tourism professionals and their partners to see and monitor visitor volume and visitor management and climate risk. Collectively, I think these pillars help destinations align tourism development with United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. They offer not just a set of indicators, but a shared vision for thriving places and thriving people. Now let's explore just a few case studies from around the world that illustrate how standards are implemented within each of these 4 pillars in the area of sustainable management. So the Cayman Islands, faced with the risk of climate change, overcrowding, and poorly regulated tourism, created a sustainable tourism destination plan. Their strategy enhanced stakeholder coordination and spread benefits more equitably across communities while addressing threats like environmental degradation and visitor safety. It reflects GSTC's call for inclusive destination governance. Another great example is Park City, Utah, not too far from our Arizona border, and Summit County, Utah, and how their destination management organization has transformed its approach to tourism through a comprehensive, community-driven, sustainable tourism plan. In 2021, the Park City Chamber and Visitors Bureau commissioned the Global Sustainable Tourism Council to conduct a destination assessment. And this was a rigorous process, measuring Summit County against the GSTC criteria, as well as against 4 pillars: management, economic benefits, heritage, and environmental conservation. The assessment found strengths in socioeconomic and environmental sustainability, but also identified areas for improvement in sustainable management and cultural sustainability. It was a catalyst for change. Following the assessment, Park City convened a 20-member Destination Stewardship Council. This group represents local government and businesses, nonprofits, and community voices. Their role was to guide the creation and implementation of the Sustainable Tourism Plan. And their plan is grounded in 5 stewardship principles: respect the health of the local environment and natural resources, foster local spirit, sense of place and well-being for residents, employers, and visitors, ensure tourism benefits are shared equitably across all communities, and lead by example, mitigating impacts, championing benefits, and embracing regenerative tourism. Be bold, creative, transparent, and committed to measurable outcomes. These principles translate into strategic objectives, which range from cultivating local pride and respect to equalizing economic benefits and reducing tourism-related impacts on residents. And to turn the objectives into action, they kept their plan alive through transparent updates and annual grants programs. The Sustainable Tourism Grant Program funds projects up to $30,000. These range from trailhead webcams that help manage congestion, to refillable amenity pilots in hotels, to new cultural heritage tourism programs. The entire plan is explicitly aligned with GSTC criteria. It provides clear governance structure that meet the requirements for multi-stakeholder management, and it embeds 4 pillars into every single objective. Park City and Summit County's journeys show how a destination can move from marketing to true stewardship. It's about community leadership, clear principles, and global alignment through a framework called the GSTC. The result is a plan that not only supports tourism, but protects the culture, the environment, and the community's quality of life. And in summer of 2024, Park City was officially certified as a mountain ideal destination. This achievement places Park City among an elite group of destinations that have reached a significant milestone. Their certification shows commitment to building community connections and civic programs, and a dedication to continuously improving environmental systems and efforts to educate visitors about outdoor stewardship. Another one is Big Bay, Michigan. It's a small, remote Upper Peninsula community in the US that traditionally depended on seasonal tourism. This created economic vulnerability, infrastructure strain, and ecological challenges. In response, local leaders, artists, business owners, and resource management came together to form the Big Bay Destination Stewardship Council. This council now oversees tourism branding and marketing under the Discover Big Bay's identity. It sets governance through steering, marketing, and placemaking committees. It develops sustainable infrastructure planning and visitor management ideas. This governance shift emerged from a scoping study that was facilitated by the Center for Responsible Travel, but is also a textbook example of aligning with sustainable management of destination criteria, which calls for multi-stakeholder management and a body to help destination-wide sustainability. While Big Bay has not yet pursued an accredited certification, it doesn't matter. It practices directly aligned with a framework by ensuring inclusive participatory governance, creating continuous improvement mechanisms for tourism management, and embedding environmental, cultural, and economic considerations into all of their decisions. It's important an item to note is that Big Bay shows that even a small rural community can lead tourism governance reform and embrace destination stewardship, which is pretty exciting. And considering all these pillars holistically, I'm going to end with one example that I've been personally involved with for over 25 years. The Rivers Fiji case study offers a compelling example of how ecotourism or a small operation can serve as a powerful vehicle for environmental sustainability and community development. At the heart of this initiative is the protection of an Upper Navua Conservation Area, a pristine 18-kilometer canyon located on Viti Levu in the Republic of Fiji. Established in 2000 through a groundbreaking conservation lease involving indigenous landowners, a logging company, and the Native Land and Trust Board at the time, the UNCA prohibits commercial extraction along the river corridor. This protection has preserved critical biodiversity, including rare and endemic species such as the sago palm, and Fiji's only boa constrictor. And notably, the area was also recognized as Fiji's first and only Ramsar site, or wetland of international importance, underscoring its global ecological value. But beyond environmental protection, Rivers Fiji has provided tangible economic and social benefits for local communities. Indigenous landowners receive direct compensation through lease payments and user fees, while the operation has generated employment opportunities and supported local businesses. Nature-based tourism has diversified the region's economy, and which was traditionally reliant on farming and logging, and it's fostering resilience and sustainability. And additionally, the revenue from tourism has contributed to infrastructure development, including new schools, clinics, and access to clean water. Training and education programs have further empowered community members to participate actively in and benefit from the growing ecotourism sector. A central element of Rivers Fiji's success lies in its emphasis on environmental outreach and education. In collaboration with the local NGO, Nature Fiji, the project has implemented immersive river trips and sustainability education programs aimed at fostering environmental awareness in partnership with residents of local communities. These initiatives have targeted both children and adults, encouraging stewardship by highlighting the cultural, ecological, and economic value of their natural landscapes. As a result, communities have developed a deeper appreciation for conservation, laying the groundwork for long-term protection of their natural heritage. And despite the challenges associated with tourism, such as commercial resource consumption and cultural pressures, Rivers Fiji demonstrates how ecotourism can generate a virtuous cycle. Tourist spending directly supports conservation and local livelihoods, while visitors often become advocates for environmental protection. In turn, improved quality of life and community empowerment reinforce a conservation ethic amongst local stakeholders. This reciprocal relationship between tourism and conservation offers a self-sustaining model for ecological preservation and socioeconomic development, making Rivers Fiji a global exemplar of integrated environmental stewardship. This next short film that I'm going to showcase shows the importance of working with communities to establish a program that not only conserves a river corridor, but provides natural capital directly to communities who depend on this resource for economic development within the region.
The island dream I expected. Endless beach, sand, surf, sunsets, even fire. I didn't expect this. I've been lucky to have seen rivers around the world. I've even run a few, source to sea. So I guess I thought I'd seen what rivers could offer, and the natural artwork they sculpt upon our landscapes. Honestly, no description could have prepared me for this. What the native people here refer to as the highway to their ancestors. Some call it the River of Eden. Others say it is the tropical Grand Canyon. Here, in Fiji, the locals call it the Navua River. Beyond this undescribable beauty, something else lured me here. The Upper Navua River is the only protected river of its kind in the South Pacific.
When I was born, I heard stories about this area. This is like a route or road to all our ancestors up in this area. That's a good thing that we River Fiji have protected it from other developments like extracting gravel, mining, or damming the whole river.
About 15 years ago, a small rafting company did the unthinkable. They convinced local landowners and the government that the long-term economic benefit of conservation and tourism outweighed the quick money from extracting their resources or damming their river. I came here to understand how so few people could protect such a spectacular corridor inside Fiji's volcanic heart.
The Upper Navua River Canyon is one of the most beautiful rivers on Earth. It is a tight, narrow canyon that probably is less than 20 feet wide in some places, spans up to 250, 300 feet high. It has dark black canyon walls fringed with green palms and ferns with trickles of water and waterfalls throughout the whole course. During the rainy season, we easily would never be out of sight upstream or downstream of a waterfall. And I've never been in a place where that is even remotely possible.
Welcome to my office.
There are several approaches to conservation in Fiji. The approach that we've used here at the Upper Navua Conservation Area is with children. We anticipate that bringing the children out to experience benefits of grandparents or the elders' decision to protect the area, we hope will inspire them to continue to manage it well for tourism and also, more importantly, for future generations.
Conservation is something we have to wake up to every day and say, we have to protect this place. It's never a fight that is over.
Children of the Matangali that own land adjacent to the river to have to know its value and know that they have the power to protect it or to lose it.
A Fijian friend told me, you don't have to dig very deep into the Upper Navua Conservation Area to find gold. As the stewards of this ancestral river showed me, value not only surrounds them in the form of beauty, but it also supports them.
I can say it's my best friend. I treated the river with respect every day I step onto it.
This is the real Fiji.
Great.
I think in the interest of time, I just would like to leave everyone with a thought. I believe we can shape destinations that are not only visited, but valued, not only protected, but restored, and not only seen, but sustained. Thank you very much.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Bricker. These are beautiful pictures. Nice video. Thank you for sharing your work with GSTC and River Fiji. Great work. So the Q&A function is open. So if you have any questions for Dr. Bricker or Dr. Simmons, please submit your questions. As you will be posting your questions, I'm gonna begin with a few questions I have. So I think both of you discussed some forms of niche tourism, ecotourism, adventure tourism, nature-based, which some of these could be transformation, tourism transformation, possibly tourism transformation, right? But usually these forms of tourism are very small scale, right? You work with few hundred people, but how do we scale this up to mainstream or mass tourism, including urban and cultural tourism? So the impacts are huge. Tourism impacts are huge at the global scale, but if we change a little bit through niche tourism, we won't be able to achieve our goal, right? So just thoughts, how we can scale this up, both Bricker and Dr. Simmons.
Thank you. Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, Gian. I'll just deal with the first question there first from Faranak, about how does the regenerative tourism ensure human nature are not separated? And I think it's no surprise to me that this whole idea of regenerative tourism gained so much discussion and emphasis during COVID, because one of the things that I think nature was trying to teach us is that as a species, we are not separate from nature. One of my favorite phrases, and it reiterates much of what Kelly was saying, is that we have to learn to live within the grain of nature. That we are actually not the super species. Maybe microbes are the super species. And so the question is, and that's why in my talk on the front page, I had, is this a new philosophy of travel? So to me, much of the change for regenerative tourism comes about from what sort of impact do I have as a traveler? Do I just go to places and consume? Do I just look for a cheap souvenir? Do I just disregard local people and their inputs? But how, not just so much what have I gained from this visit, but what have they, the people in the industry, the members of the host community, and the operating systems of that society, how have they all benefited from mine? So I think it's not about being separate, it's about being integrated. And I suppose, just following a part of Kelly's theme, I think there is a shift away from sort of quantitative tourism to qualitative tourism. So I've met one or two people who are very keen to tell me how many destinations they have visited. Well, I'm in the 100 different country club or 50 country. I don't think it matters. The question that's being asked is, how do we travel well, and travel well that brings about positive change in all those elements? So if I can, Kelly and Gian, just go to the second question from Tech.
Let's David, let me moderate these questions because we might have getting a lot of questions. So
good.
Kelly, yes. So don't worry about reading this question. I'm gonna go through these questions and ask you, Dr. Bricker.
Yes. I'd like to go back to one of your first thoughts of, how do we get beyond niche excellence, maybe in ecotourism or things that are stating that they're caretaking the planet and the communities that they serve in. I believe that we've got to get over this niche idea that sustainability or regeneration is for any niche market or any niche activity. It's got to be a comprehensive global effort. And so, maybe sustainability isn't the right term anymore. Maybe stewardship is, maybe regenerative tourism is. But I do think what's most important about all of the terms out there is we have to figure out how to actually first and foremost benefit those communities from this particular activity that we all seem to be interested in, right? And I would say it goes into farming and it goes into logging and it goes into all the other industries there, but we're today focused on tourism. So how do we ensure that tourism, no matter where it is, in a big city, in a tiny rural village in Annapurna, in the highlands of Viti Levu, how do we look at that place and do what's best for the communities that it serves, but also for the environment and for what's appropriate to that environment? So I'm beyond the niche idea, and I think David probably is too, and I think Ian, you probably are too, that it has to be anything that we do in the industry itself has to look at it from this transformative model that David's presented today, but also from a model that actually benefits the places where tourists are attracted to.
Yeah, good point. Good point. There are quite a few questions already, so I'm going to go through each of them if I can. Dr. Tek Dangi has a question about, do you have any case studies of this regenerative tourism, Dr. Simmons? Have you seen any places where we can, use case study to teach and learn?
Yeah. Let me just show one slide which I had tagged on. This one here. Can you see that? And the thing is that the case studies can be sort of anywhere. So if you think about environmental dimensions, you've got those options. I will, this will be now as part of the recording, and this was prepared with my friend and colleague, Susanna Becken. But you can look at cultural opportunities, providing knowledge sharing opportunities, or stimulating knowledge creation, or sponsoring education, or generating local employment by sourcing local goods and services and enhancing the local economy rather than imported things, or social dimensions. I won't go through them all here, but the world kind of lives in, we're surrounded by case studies because we create them every time we visit somewhere. I wanted to come back to tourist behavior and to think about, alongside stewardship is our responsibility as a guest. And if so, my simple example is if Kelly invited me to her place for dinner, and we just think about going to someone else's place, and we had a nice barbecue, and there's some chicken, but I didn't want all the chicken. Would I ever flick some of it into her garden because I don't want to leave it on the plate? No, I don't. Would I leave with all the dishes and things around the garden? No, I wouldn't. Would I offer to tidy up? Yes, if I'm a good visitor, I would. So if you think about the simplest things, about looking after your waste stream, and you think it not as a niche, but as an escalator. And it may be that at some point you give half a day or some time to an NGO to help them with mangroves or some other work. So to me, at the heart of all of this is, how do we want to behave? How do we choose to behave as visitors? And what sort of way can the industry support that? So I'll just leave that thought there for the sake of it.
Thank you. There are two questions related to government's role. What could government do to have more positive movement, positive net effect, I would say. So can you talk about what can government do? I think the government's role could be crucial in terms of making policy. I know individual will make change, but government has to have some effort to have this larger scale changes, right?
I personally think government's role is absolutely critical, because if you don't have policies in place that actually are geared towards protecting the environment and enhancing the social good of any industry that you have in your country, you're going to see things go by the wayside. What we noted during COVID, for example, is many more governments were very interested in how do we start? How do we get on this stewardship or regenerative pathway and really enhance and build resiliency in our communities? And so we saw an uptick of government interest, government training, government engagement. Some governments are adopting guidance. I think governments also need to get out of their silo ways of thinking and understand that the health department actually relates to tourism, and stop putting tourism off in this little corner of a ministry, but integrate these other government entities that actually make a difference on the ground. So whether it's Department of Environment or Health or Economic Development, those are all pieces that the government needs to pay attention to for tourism. So David, please.
Look, I agree 100%. In the same way as we talk about the industry as being multifaceted, whether it's various sorts of attractions, public or private, whether it's community-based accommodation or commercial, tourism and the like, it's a big integrated sector. So too is the government. There's not one arm of government which is not touched by tourism, whether it's public health, employment, biodiversity, border protection, certainly natural resources. But one of the things that governments tend to do, and they've done it unfortunately a bit more so post-COVID, is they tend to put it all into economic development. And the question is actually having a broader lens on where tourism fits in. And that's what I'd be encouraging governments to do, to actually make sure that they are well integrated across a whole variety of ministries that contribute to the public resource base that's being managed with tourism.
Thank you. There's one question from Dale Honeck. The question is, how can tourism be a force for good when so many visitors arrive on long-haul flights? So definitely a carbon question, right?
Yeah.
There you go, Kelly.
Well, I would just say it's a constant conundrum, right? But I think if you look at some of these developing nations, especially in the Pacific and other regions of the world, that their GDP depends entirely 70% or higher on tourism. I think you have to weigh and what's happening. You do see the air industry working on some issues, but I think there's also, I mean, people are looking at ways to help mitigate that long distance, long haul by staying longer, by slowing down travel and not visiting 5-10 countries in a week, but going to one place and spending more time there. And then it makes the individual carbon use a little bit more on the tolerable side, but certainly it's an issue, and it's being addressed in so many different ways. But I think if we absolutely cut off tourism to long haul markets like the Pacific, we do more devastation than good at this juncture.
Yeah, and right down here on the bottom of the earth in New Zealand, this is our wicked problem. So now look, I think it's so difficult, because I do not believe that sustainable aviation fuels or battery power will take us there. I was having a discussion last night with some New Zealand government officials about that. So the question is, how do we, in a sense, ration tourism? And many years ago, you put forward a proposal to WTO that would actually sort of, in a sense, rob Peter to pay Paul, that look at the enormous volume between North America and Europe and between China, and then look at the countries that Kelly was talking about. Of the world's 49 poorest countries, 46 have tourism as their number one source of foreign exchange. And then you could actually think, and AI might provide an opportunity for this if we're going to transform. Actually, we haven't done a very good job of balancing work life. So when I started, there used to be in university used to be a thing called a sabbatical. But if you look at our equitable distribution of carbon, or the Earth's ability to absorb it, we would be able to take 5 global trips in our lifetime. Well, that could be once a decade. We would have to choose very carefully. We'd have to stay much longer. We'd have to seek quality experiences rather than quantity ones. So also, in that sense, I'm not particularly hopeful, but there will have to be structural changes.
Thank you. These are great response. Actually, we're just running out of time. So thank you, Dr. Siemens. Thank you, Dr. Bricker, for your insight on tourism transformation. Your examples are useful and interesting. And thank you, everyone, for attending the session. Hope you enjoyed the webinar. Please stay tuned for the next webinar. I look forward to seeing you at probably the next webinar. Thank you so much.